Oh, hi. Let's play some football, huh? Okay. This is my kind of like a small joke I made myself. It's mostly because I went to watch this movie called Him, and a few days ago, I watched with a couple of people. I rewatched The Room. And it was funny how, that in The Room there's a few scenes of Tommy Wiseau and the other actor just playing tag with a football. And now here I am watching a movie that has more to do than football than well, The Room had. And by the way, yes, the movie is called Him, and don't be fooled, it's not the sequel to the movie Her, which is I haven't seen it, but we know that it's about the romance between a guy and an app. That's basically it. And you know what? Here's a lot of things that I wanted to say about this movie because I just came from the movie and immediately I wanted to make this vlog because there's some things that I do I don't want it to forget. I usually when I come back from the movie theater I just take a break, I rest, but okay. I wanted to let it all out before anything. Even there's some Chinese food that I want to eat, but I want to finish this before anything. Okay, here's the thing. I was mostly curious about this movie, considering that it had the Jordan Peele name on it, which he didn't direct it. He was the producer, and apparently nowadays they always say that Jordan Peele is kind of like one of the most interesting horror filmmakers there is. Although I wouldn't say he's filmmaker because I think he only directed one movie. The other ones are produced. But honestly, his movies were a little bit of a kind of like a downhill with me. For starters, I did kind of like Get Out. I was okay with Us. I don't remember exactly what other movies there was, but I think that the last movie I saw with his name attached to it was Nope. And that one was interesting, but still, what was up with that monkey? Up to this day, I don't know what was up with that monkey on that movie. And now we got this one, which is called Him, which I gotta say that at first I almost thought that it was gonna be like that garbage movie called Men, the one that villainized masculinity by saying that men doesn't deserve to men are evil. What do you want us to do? He didn't make that. He was the guy from Civil. What was it? The Civil. Garland, I think it was. The name escapes me. I don't know. So a movie about him actually it was gonna be about football. I'm not exactly kind of like a big sportsman, but I started getting a little bit of interest about American football, mostly after watching Ice Shield 21. And then I had some fun while watching kind of like the Super Bowl once in a while with my family, and so I got some certain knowledge out of it. And then I thought it was gonna be a movie about a guy who's gonna become kind of like the very best, but of course, be the very best means that he had to go something like a cult or something like that. This is what the trailer at least told me. Well, I expected. And then I decided to watch it. And here is my honest thought about this movie. This movie is a letdown. That movie was a total letdown in the sense that you find that this movie is not exactly engaging, and for the most part, you kind of notice that this has a lot of pretentious artistry on it. While I did say that every artist kind of have this sense of pretentiousness in their veins because they want to showcase how deep we compare things from one thing to another and all this stuff to make us feel like we're smarter than that. And well, how can I say how's the best I can describe it? You guys have seen this movie, Mother, many years ago. Well, I did kind of like Mother in some ways. I do have to agree that Mother was kind of like one of the most pretentious movie there is, in which they kind of have this kind of like this home invasion kind of movie, but in a way it kind of make analogies to religion, people, nature, and all this stuff. Motherhood. That's what Mother is. This movie, Him, it kind of have also this kind of aura in the sense that it wanted to compare what was it, the life of being a American football player, and they insert like religion, social commentary, toxic masculinity, the essence of effort, and like I said, not only religion but also they kind of make it allusion to not only, how can I say, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, demonic cults, and also and a little bit of kind of like the Roman gladiators, but that doesn't tell you a little bit too much in your face. You kind of notice I'm kind of like in the imagery, and it wouldn't be too bad if it wasn't that the movie is very much a slug. It kind of tends to get a little bit boring, and sometimes it adds all this imagery and elements that pops out of kind of like nowhere and doesn't feel like it has a foundation to make the audience kind of like care or something like that. And by the way, I'm not exactly the only one who comes up with a little bit of a negative opinion about this movie. I had kind of like a decent quiet pack theater, and I did hear like 2 or 3 people saying that this movie sucks or something like that. No, seriously. It wasn't only me, and even a lady who was next to me, when the movie ended, I looked at her face and she was like, kind of like the most confused expression that she had, because I was kind of a little bit like that during most of the movie. I was like, what did I just watch? I can see some people liking this movie fine because it's that kind of like the worst thing that I have seen this year, and it's probably kind of like not the most eye racing of them all. It's just that something kind of like feels off, I'll say. So let's get on with it. So the movie stars this guy who was played by Taika Withers or something like that. I think that was his name, but he plays this prominent football player. We see, that in his childhood he liked football. He was a little bit coached by his father, who was also kind of like a big fan of football. He also teaches him to watch, someone getting injured in order to make a touchdown. A big injury that even their bones kind of stick up, which kind of begs the question how you let televise something like that, because I know for sure they'll never televise someone having their bones kind of stick or something like that, unless it was kind of like an accident. But anyway, this guy wants to follow kind of like his father's footsteps, making playing American football. He's kind of like a prodigy, and he wants to become kind of like the next quarterback on this team, which oddly enough the team is named the Saviors. I'll let you hang on to that. Why the team is called the Saviors. But anyway, apparently some mascot kind of guy knocks him on the head with a hammer, and then he gets a kind of like a concussion that apparently affected his life. And of course he's depressed. He thinks that his career is ruined, even though it was a concussion on the head. Okay, I know that it's harsh on that, but either way, dude, at least have some rest or something like that. He has stitched the staples on the skull, and of course he thinks that, okay, my career's over. That is until he gets a call from his agent. And he's like, hey, we know that you got this guy who you admire, and he decides to coach you for a week in order to become kind of like the next quarterback of the Sabres. He's like, yes, I'm in. And he goes there, which is basically kind of almost like in the middle of nowhere. And there he meets kind of like this prodigy football player. I think his name was Isaac White or something like that. And he's played by the talented Marlon Wayans. And he's like, okay, dude, you're gonna stay here for a week, and we're gonna train you to become the best quarterback you could ever be. And yep, at first it's good. But then as things goes on, it gets a little bit, how can I say, deeper in the sense that I don't know how deep it is, because let's say that some of the training aspects are much harsh. Let's say, for example, he must train hard to coordinate his passings, or else some guy is gonna get hit on the face with a machine shooter with a football, but he's like, good, or he gets, and also you can notice that he must embrace being tough. He must endure all these pains. Also, he gets injected with some kind of blood, almost like what was it called? The name escapes me. When you inject yourself in order to make steroids. Yes, it's almost like steroids. And of course, there's kind of like crazy stalkers. He feels kind of like demonic, and the guy also is getting kind of like visions of people kind of like following him or something like that. It's a mess, by the way. This thing is a total mess. A lot of things kind of feels kind of like so inconsistent and tries a little bit too hard to put kind of like a message about how players are treated in the face of sportsmanship. And of course, because of how the big wig agent sees this and all this stuff, and they kind of have some kind of like this religion, because they wanted to kind of also bring the kind of like the message of the glorification of your sports and heroes and your idols and all this stuff. And while I do get that what they were trying to do, the foundation is not. It's kind of confusing in a way. It's sometimes kind of like jumps from one thing to another, and it kind of also tries to be kind of like that. It also, here's the thing, that the movie kind of divides itself, like for example in the day. For example, day 1, have fun. Day 2, retribution, I think it was called. Day 3, leadership. Day 4, something like that, and all that. And basically the whole movie was trying to say that the guy is basically kind of like the next GOAT. And it took me a while to get that GOAT. It kind of means a sacrificial goat, but in a way, I know that there's a slang that they call GOAT, and call me old-fashioned or something like that, but I never get what means when people say, hey, you're that GOAT, you're a GOAT or something like that. That's all. I apologize if it goes like that. So everything's kind of like confusing. At least let me give you this movie a little bit of a positive, and that is mostly a little bit on the acting, in which um uh, uh, the main protagonist, let's say, what was it, Taika Withers, he's fine, but it's kind of a little bit, how can I say, stoic in a way in his acting. There are moments in which he does manage to give a kind of like a good performance, but as a character, well, he wasn't exactly kind of like that interesting, I'll say. He just kind of like the same bland protagonism. I could see him. Although we kind of like understand how the guy, he just tried to play the sport because he likes the sport, but then he wants to be the very best, but he doesn't care about the glory and all the stuff. But then he gets dragged into kind of like this situation in which he has to prove that he's the best, but also come with the prize of how he has to be tough or something like that. But if there's kind of like this stellar acting, it's of course Marlon Wayans, in which I gotta admit I almost never saw him in the most dramatic roles. I mostly know him, and I'm sorry everyone for typecasting him, but I know him more because I watch him on Scary Movie, Aspect 1 and 2 specifically, and he was one of the funniest characters. I mostly see him on comedic acting, and honestly, for dramatic slash horror acting, whatever you want to call it, horror, he does great. He has this presence. He has the presence in which you can find him kind of like friendly, but at the same time he goes a little bit kind of like unhinged in a way, and he's like, come on, down, or something like that, or when his great set. Something like that is interesting. He kind of carries a little bit the movie where it goes. And there's some other character, like for example, there's the doctor who gives him the steroids. There's kind of like the lady who at first I thought it was Lady Gaga, but she wasn't. They wanted to. There's kind of like also the football coach, the football agents, and there's the family also, but the family kind of like are just there, and they think they wanted to showcase that the guy has much to lose one thing to another, but that doesn't showcase at all. Maybe this is why I thought I didn't care for much for the character, because the movie kind of didn't show too much about it, that what does the guy has to lose if he goes to kind of like this harsh training and all these things. How can I say, if he doesn't make it, then what does he gain? He's not gonna be a quarterback, or he's gonna lose his life. That almost comes a little bit on the end, but it doesn't showcase kind of like like a moment in which he doesn't have a choice to why he doesn't just say walk away. He just like, screw this, my life and my family worth it, I'm going home, or something like that. But no, they didn't want to showcase something like that. I don't know. I'm just popping things that I remember from my head. Okay, cinematography. This is also where the movie mostly suffered. Like I said, the movie is kind of like a slug. In which things go kind of like slow, but when things happen, it's almost like a moment, and it's just, or sometimes things happen because it happens, just like the editing that they wanted to do. Sometimes they just wanted to showcase kind of like a weird imagery for the sake of weird imagery, and just to say, hey, look, this is symbolic. And I was like, what in the world? What happened? For example, kind of like the start of the movie, the guy, our protagonist, he sees kind of like this weird bearded guy all covered in red, and then he goes like, bah. and then he wakes up. I swear that this movie has kind of like 4 or 5 times, I lost count, 4 or 5 times in which an imagery happens, and then the guy wakes up. It's almost like the movie is obsessed on those fake visions or nightmare visions, and in which it kind of makes you it's all in his head or it's something really happening, and it's weird. Especially there was a moment in which it could have been scarier, but it doesn't. I don't care if I ruin it, but there's this moment in which the protagonist is alone in the sauna, and then out of nowhere, the imagery could have been creepy, but then under the sauna, a woman comes crawling, and then she decides that she wants to attack him because she's a crazy fan. And when she showcased kind of like in the movie earlier, she just screamed at him with a lot of hatred because she's apparently from another team. And what was it she's screaming? But she mostly it's like you suck. You're gonna took that. You're gonna ruin it. You suck. And she by the way, she returns, of course, trying to kill a protagonist. But it kind of begs the question: how in the frick she got there? And of course, the guy is safe, but she's also kind of accompanied with two other guys painted in white, and I'm like, all these crazy fans and all this stuff, but still. And then nothing else happened. They just kind of question it in this random scene at the next, in which they go on a shooting gallery, and they was like, what happened to the woman? Oh, that woman. I don't know. What was that about? It doesn't cement a lot about what is going on, except apparently it wanted to showcase about the toxic fandom of toxic opposition. I mean, and it doesn't settle. It just kind of like, and then comes, not only the visions and the imagery, but then kind of comes this party sequence. This party sequence in which things get a little bit kind of like psychedelic. It kind of comes like this artsy imagery just to showcase how we can make editing or something like that. And this is what I meant sometimes when I call these kind of movies pretentious, in which when you add kind of like these imagery, you think that you kind of feel like you're smart because you can do it or something like that. Also, and it in a way it's artsy, and I don't mind doing kind of like artsy for the arts, but don't expect that not everyone will get it, and I was kind of like trying to get it, honestly. Sorry about this sudden change while editing this video, and well, the reason I just kind of mashed this section of the original video was mostly because I did forget talking about a certain aspect about the editing and the visual effects about this movie, and the thing that I forgot to mention about kind of like the visuals is that while I did say that the editing and the imagery that they wanted to put is a little bit pretentious, that doesn't mean that I kind of dislike what they were trying to do. But one thing that in particular that I did want to describe it is that the film did felt a little bit in a more of using kind of like the effects of what's going on inside your body. Like I said, I did mention that the character had a concussion in his head, and he had kind of like the staple stitches on it. Well, sometimes when the movie kind of wants to cut at random, sometimes is that when they inject with the kind of like the steroid thing or something like that, and you kind of just begin to see kind of like the body kind of like that's something kind of like having this noise, or it almost like the body kind of like healing itself a little bit, almost like it was a weapon X kind of imagery. But that goes kind of like this so quick that you know the kind of effect that it has. But most notably is that there was kind of like two instances in which it kind of turns into this X-ray vision that you begin to see kind of like the bones or the or like you see almost like the X-ray. It almost like like these X-ray attacks from the recent Mortal Kombat games. That was kind of like something that I forgot to add in. That's pretty. And I didn't want it to make kind of like the whole retake the whole vlog, and so I just decided to mesh up this small segment to be a little bit more specific about the visuals that this movie has. So back to the original video. And by the way, the movie called itself kind of like a body horror, but that didn't feel like body horror. You want to know body horror? Watch The Substance. That's body horror. But nothing topped kind of something like that. And by the way, I guess we got kind of like the ending that felt kind of like the Gladiators kind of thing when they wanted to showcase, that they're doing all this for him, the sport or something like that. And some kind of, they wanted to, again, showcase us, compare, football celebrity, football stardom with religion or something like that. They wanted to connect all the kind of like this dot in which you kind of get it, but okay, maybe a little bit. I won't exactly spoil too much about what happened, but then we got kind of like this ending in which I'm hearing people that they have kind of like mixed feelings on the ending. I understand those mixed feelings, but ironically, the ending, I just decided to turn off my brain and just kind of entertain the things that are happening, because it's bloody, by the way. It's gruesome and bloody, but I was just kind of like desperate because this whole mess of a movie, I was like, okay, let me shut down and just go along with it, because I was like, you know what? This happened. I get it. It is what happened. Oh, something happened. Can you explain that? No. I just go along with the ride. I understand what they wanted to do, and then the movie ended, and I was just there. I was like, okay, that happened. And like I said, I watched I watched the lady next to me, and she was having this confused face, and then I overhear two spectators of the movie and were like, "This movie suck." Jeez. But to be fair, I don't regret watching this movie. I don't regret it in the sense that you kind of, sometimes these kind of movies are far in between whether you don't like it or not. And yeah, that's the thing. I didn't like the movie. Respect it, but don't like it, I'll say. And I can see why Jordan Peele was kind of angry that he couldn't get his name on Weapons, because Weapons did a better job on this on making a horror movie than this one. Because him, jeez, no guts, no glory. It had the guts, but I see no glory.